So my experience of going to a strip club is a little bit like what it feels like with a social blind, where it's like,
yeah,
like they're having a lap dance next to you, and you're like, where do I put my eyes? Like, I can't.
That's good.
True.
What the hell are you doing? Like, are you serious with this shit? You're so embarrassed, but like, I love that. I'm embarrassed for you.
But we're not embarrassed.
No, that's totally true. Peak comedy watching social lines.
The big hormone enneagram.
I'm John Lekovich, 415, sexual self-pres, 458 trifix.
I'm David Gray, self-pres sexual, 9 with 1 wing, 974 trifix.
What up, it's Emeka. I'm an 8-wing-7, sexual self-pres with 854 fixes.
Hi, I'm Nancy. I'm a 3-wing-4 self-pres social, 369 trifix.
Hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm a social self-preservation 9-wing-1, 963 trifix.
If you like or hate us, make sure you go like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and make sure you leave us a review.
Welcome to Big Hormone Enneagram. We are doing the long-awaited social blind roast.
They've been waiting for years for this one.
If you didn't know what a roast is, it is where we make fun of a certain type to bring out lessons and ideas around the type. Anyway, so it's a roast. And we've got a whole deck of repugnant social types here to help us out.
Deplorable.
Yeah, y'all say hi.
It's a great introduction.
Yeah, that was a social blind introduction.
Very great introduction to make you feel welcome. Let's just say that's what you deserve. Whatever. Say hi. Introduce yourselves.
Hi.
Hey.
All right, we got Joseph. Who else we got?
We got Courtney with
This
the K.
is Courtney.
Courtney with the K.
Courtney with the K, that's right. Then we have Dreamlord. We have Dreamlord Kristen with us as well.
Hello.
All right, welcome everybody.
Hope you guys came ready with heavy blows.
I have notes.
Good.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Notes. I'm ready.
Yeah,
We've set a high bar for roasting on this podcast.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you guys have to roast yourselves too, you know? You can't participate in
Actually,
because otherwise
no.
it's imbalanced.
Let me just say, when I look at these two gentlemen, I have no criticisms whatsoever. Never happened.
Yeah.
Can we actually mute them? Can that be a thing? Can we just mute everyone? All the social blinds?
We will mute ourselves. We want you guys to have
No,
stage.
actually, this is our podcast.
I want to see them try to roast us. That's what I'm here to see.
Okay.
God,
I want to see try to roast greatness.
this is already so annoying.
We'll say.
Yeah, it's this is going to be a lot for us.
So maybe should we the four of us that are not social blind, should we say our type and stacking just so people can get some context for where we're coming from as we
Context.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Great idea. All right, I'll start. Hi, guys. You know me. I'm Alexandra. I'm a social self-pres 9-wing-1 Bermuda. 6 and 3 fixes.
Hi guys, it's Joseph. It's social sexual 4-wing-3 461, the worst trifix.
Indeed.
Hi, I'm Courtney. 6-wing-5 631 social self-pres.
And I'm Kristen, social self-pres 9-wing-1 963.
Gang.
Y'all want to do any plugs? Just because we got like the Dream Lord and the Dark Arts whole academy, the entire academy is here.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so please buy my book. Please rate and review it, and
Joseph, you should go ahead and talk about.
I know I can't.
yeah, Joseph, you should plug.
I don't know what a plug is. Somebody else has to do
I want you to
just to talk about dark arts. Tell people about why they should subscribe.
I want you to say dangerously perceptive or whatever Emeka always says.
Yeah.
I always say, people want to become dangerously perceptive and skilled at seeing the types clearly. Don't be an Enneagram moron. Learn how to type Join DAA today.
Do you approve of that socially, Joseph, how he does that?
No, he doesn't. It's embarrassing him socially and on a heart level.
I'm already getting a sinking feeling of shame.
Did you name it Dark Arts with the Harry Potter thing?
Oh,
that was Emeka's accidental Harry Potter reference. I just let it happen. He was like, "What about Dark Arts Academy?" I was like,
What's going on here?
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, it's stroke of genius.
Let me
Social blind.
Because Alexandra and I tomorrow night with the Crom are recording a very social. What are we doing? We're doing
Barbie commentary.
We're going to do something that has
Reviewing
a Barbie commentary review, and it's going to be pink. And I'm going to do all the stuff that like I can't do with David and Emeka.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. Tune in.
Yeah.
And then y'all just did a Prince Court, right?
We did, yeah. I mean, I don't know how many people like watched it, and it was like really personal because we were talking about our you and my partner. But that was such an amazingly illuminating episode for me. I probably was for you too, because we're sitting there and it's just like, wow, okay, like this is. It was all just like hitting for me, like all of the stuff when you were talking about, and I was like, oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So hopefully people will listen to that too.
Yeah, I think they've been fun.
Yeah. Alexander, do a plug.
All right. I have my website, SaturnRuled9.com. I have I don't want to call it a YouTube channel, but I guess that's what it is, where I'm recapping the Bachelorette episodes. There will be different seasons of different shows coming in the future. They've been fun. Tune in. And that's it.
Attachment type support group.
All right. Josh and I also have our attachment support group that we are hosting through the Enneagram School. We've had a lot of interest. At this point, we only have one spot left, but we're continue to show interest. If you guys are interested, we're using kind of this information to see how we want to keep this going in the future. So you can check out that information at theenneagramschool.com.
Cool.
Kristen.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, check out our podcast, Insomnia, where you can listen to us talk about dreams and the Enneagram, and we kind of also just talk about the unconscious and the Enneagram, so even if you don't dream, you can still listen to it and get information out of it. We frame the Enneagram in a different way. And you can go on my website, inkstoryrebel.com, if you want a dream interpreted by me.
Cool.
Courtney, I don't plug. I have nothing to plug.
You don't want people to visit you anywhere?
I mean, they can find me if they really want to.
In the K-hole. All right, y'all. We're going to sit back
launch
and
the first torpedo.
Sit back and let y'all do your thing and fail miserably at trying to make fun of us. Go ahead.
Because I didn't listen to the other ones, what is the format? Are we supposed to roast you? Are we just supposed to talk about social blinds? Like, what do you want us to do here?
All of the above,
It's
really.
basically just talking about social blinds and just kind of making fun of them, what we don't like about them, what's annoying, all that kind of stuff. So it should be really difficult.
To give the structure, Alexander has started, she generally starts with some context of what social, or what the overview of what that stacking is, and then and then we just start. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what you've been doing. Social self-pres 9.
Well, that was an accident.
And then we go from there.
Just
like,
happened.
Well, let's say we started talking about doing these roasts, and I was like, what could I say about Social Blind? And then we watched HBO's The Idol.
Oh, yeah.
And it is by far the worst thing I've ever seen, but I couldn't stop watching because The Weeknd is in it, and he plays this like producer guy who's like a creep who's trying to get Johnny Depp's daughter, who's a pop star, into be creative or something, but he's like clearly a social blind. And and he had a hand in the writing, and it's like, what I picked up from there, from being like watching him as a social blind, is he was like really trying to have an effect, but in a really ineffective way. And because there was like the setup was always very weird, where on one hand there was like this, he's here, but he would like try to portray him as like dark and sexy, but also like goofy and pathetic, and you couldn't quite fit where he was supposed to be, and so he was just this kind of embarrassing presence throughout. And you couldn't quite feel it, like get the feel like, all right, is he the villain? Is he getting manipulated by the main character? Actually, is it, you know? And there was just this like kind of sinister vibe thing, but like without it turning into anything. And so that's my social blind roast.
I can't relate to that.
Yeah, it was a kind of sinister image and display with no follow through, because he was really, really bad at giving himself any kind of context. And his just like, not just in the writing, but I think like him as a person, he's also social blind. David, The Weeknd is actually your 8-wing twin, I believe.
I think he's
he's a DJ.
He's a DJ, but
okay, he's close enough.
He's close.
Pretty close.
Well, I think, Alexandra, you had certain names for the self-pres blinds. What did you call them?
Yeah, what did I call them?
Like
I had names.
Or love bombs and
I had a name.
That was Emeka.
It was crackheads and love bombs. I think it's for us. It's creeps and homewreckers.
Yeah,
creeps and homewreckers.
Yeah,
that works.
And I mean, some of it is truly creepy, but some of it is actually quite benign, but it feels creepy.
Yeah, that was my take on like The Weeknd's character. If you guys haven't seen it, watch it specifically just to know what we're talking about. The Weeknd, I don't know if it was the writing or his just personality, but because he couldn't contextualize himself, he just like how do I want to say this? The way he wanted to come across just didn't land. It was just uncomfortable and awkward. And he has like one trick to try to be sexy, but because there was no, context or like interrelationality with that, it just fell flat on his head over and over and over. And he was just, now the show is lauded as like the worst thing that's ever happened.
Yeah.
Well, I do think, we can make fun of and all the problems with social stuff, which I get. And there are some rules of engagement that social is all about. And I was looking through the list of the celebrities, and it's not the exclusive domain of the social blinds to be creepy, but it's pretty. It's like R. Kelly, Tiger Woods, like
my heroes.
Like the people that like are there's just some basic rules around kind of decency, or that not every social blind is violating, but it feels like that is the type that is most likely to not heed what's sort of considered basically kind of basic rules for engagement.
Yeah.
They're not interested in presenting an image that puts them in a different category. Like even if they're not doing those things, you're like not sure whether they're predators or not.
They don't correct it. They don't correct
there's no
the reputation
of right. Yeah.
No, I think that's a great point, because it's benign a lot of the times, but the signals are being given off, and then there's no correction for it.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think like social blind has like 3 personas that they use, because like social is like, you kind of not change who you are, but you adjust kind of like who you're talking to and whatever. And social blind has like 3, where it's just like either 1 is just creepy, 2 is like angry, or they like hate you, or 3 is like they're normal around like 1 or 2 people, like, and that's about it. Like that's their range of being able to actually communicate with people.
Well, I do think also, and I want to be roasty about this, but also use it as an opportunity to have like a real conversation. For me, what happens is it feels like a lot of times the ball's being tossed, and it could go in lots of different directions, but it only gets tossed back on like some very strict kind of channels.
Yep.
And so for someone who's got social, it feels like there's a lot of missed opportunity for play and exploration, and it just feels like a lot of domains are being skipped over with like real opportunity.
What was your Joseph, your I was going to ask like your your experience of working with us and culture shock.
I was going to say, I was trying to remember. No, I have a lot of social blinds in my life already, but I always find it just I've only been on the podcast a few times, and I don't usually listen to it because we already put out so much content, but I'm also always just like, once in a while, one of you guys will tell me something that happened on the podcast, and I can't believe you guys are all just here like unsupervised, doing whatever the fuck you do. Like David talking about fucking aliens or whatever the hell is going on. I'm just like, nope. I don't know. But I don't know. When I first started working with you guys, I think I told you this, like I had no clue for a long time if you even liked me at all. Like I had no idea. Yeah. We'd be sitting there like, I'd be trying to do something social, like I'd, like make a joke in our group chat and it would just get left on read, or it would be completely ignored. It would just be like it would be like erased, and then just like another conversation would happen, and I'm like, but they're still here. I don't know. They're talking to me. I'm not sure. So it was kind of that like weird thing of just having no idea where I stood, but then realizing that you guys don't fucking judge anybody. Now, I love judging people. You have to judge people. It's very important to judge people. You have to have, like, the social blinds will just be like, so, like, I have this friend, and, like, she's really cool, but, like, she did kill somebody. I'm just wondering if you think that's, like, is that, like, a deal breaker? This is, like, okay.
No, they don't even... They don't even ask that. They don't even think that it's a deal breaker.
They're starting to, though. Like, I bet it's come to me and been like, do you think this is like, I told this story on a DAA, but like, I'm going to tell it again because it's still funny. My sister, who is, what's his name? The rapper we were just talking about that.
The Weeknd.
The Weeknd. Type twin.
Yeah.
She's like, she was trying to introduce my partner to a tattoo artist or whatever because he's getting into tattooing, and she's like, buttering him up. He's so cool. He said, like, if he wants to come talk to me anytime, like, here's his Instagram. You should definitely talk to me. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's cool. Like, who is he? Like, where does he work? She was like, yeah, he's really nice. Do you remember there was that thing in the news about that guy that was running around the beach with a chainsaw? Anyway, that's him. But like, he's better now. They had to just drill into his brain. They took something out, but he's like totally fine now. And she wasn't kidding. Like, I was like, okay, I'll call him.
Yeah, I'll call him. Yeah. And then where does that come from too? Because I've noticed with social blind, they will confuse like and this is maybe too social self-pres of me, but like they'll confuse a person of quality with an interesting, or no, I'm sorry, it's the other way around. They'll confuse an interesting person with a person of quality. Yeah. That can get so irritating and frustrating to me because it's like the red flags are all there. They're just lying. It's one big red flag, but okay, they dress cool and they like some weird music. So let's let them right in.
That's what I've done with all of you people.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
Yeah, that tends to be one thing I've had to learn the hard way. When we started working with Joseph, he would get these what seemed to me like premonitions about people and what they were capable of, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Like, this person's gonna be a problem.
Like, dude, I relate.
She's so hard. Psychotic. She's doing psychotic things in the group. She is causing trouble.
Me and Emeka are like, what?
What are you talking about? Just and it's so funny now to look back on that.
Said, I'm psychotic.
to see how much smarter we have gotten with all the craziness that's happened in the group, and like, because we had to learn the hard way. But initially it seemed like Joseph was always sounding the alarm bell for some, like, why do you think this person is a shitty person? And of course they turn out to be a huge fucking problem.
In the last 5 years or maybe less, I feel like I've like started to think about that. Like, started to notice that, where I'm like, yeah, that person's a whatever, like, but I like, that wasn't a thing I was aware of before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and part of that's going to come from, like, I mean, describing what social is, because it is like connecting and bonding like that, but it is like being a part of something and really prioritizing that like larger kind of family, I guess, because we're going to look out for each other. We're going to take care of each other. We're going to support and regulate each other. So looking out for that like larger object is going to be the main priority. And then, you know, you have subsets of that with like individual relationships and stuff like that. But yeah, that's where sometimes I'm sure the social dominance can seem a little crazy to the social blinds, when really we're like, this is going to hurt the bigger community. Yeah. And y'all are just letting them in.
So is your perspective, it's just that like all of these signals they're not registering?
No. It's not that, I mean, we've discussed this. It's not that I can't see them. It's that there are other things that are much louder in my perception. It's like now, I have to, because of what I've experienced, I have a checklist. I have certain red flags that I can't ignore anymore. And I know that if I don't remind myself, that it will just slip away. So like every year I kind of have to renew that awareness that this person can only come this close. The zone is only for this type of person, like, you know, or these people cannot even be allowed to get this close to me. And I still have moments where it all slips away and I just respond to whatever's interesting to me.
You have to keep it as a checklist as opposed to instinctually feeling it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Because I mean, I kind of remember the very first time, well, I went on this podcast like maybe 5 or 6 times, and then it was not until the rejection episode where I was like, can we please get on video?
Right.
Yeah.
That was you.
Like, why are we? I did the same thing. Like, what are we doing? Yeah. Yeah.
You've been in the dark for years.
And even just in that like 1 second with Joseph and I, like, who's going to talk first? Like, we figured that out by looking at one another.
Yeah.
And there was just.
So remember Alexandra, our legendary podcast that we did. Okay, so
social self-pres versus social sexual.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. And when we first started talking about throwing the ball or whatever, that was a good podcast.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time we had ever fucking met. You guys were like, oh, you guys are going to do a social podcast. And I thought they were going to be on the goddamn podcast.
Yeah, right.
They just gave us a Zoom meeting and didn't show up. And I was like, hi.
Yeah.
I don't know what this podcast is.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the conversation had to start with our relating to each other over how uncomfortable being thrown into something like this was.
Yeah.
In hindsight, that was probably crazy to do.
It was just
should have been like, hey, Joseph, Alexandra, here, we're doing this together.
We don't even know. But it's that ball thing, just to talk about that. I have, so like, you know, okay, there's my sister, but also if anybody's watched Princess Court, my friend Elisa is also 3 who's self-pres sexual. And so we met in high school. And I mean, this is sort of, this is a roast, but also, I mean, one of the things I was that I liked about her so much and I was attracted is that she just honestly like did not care about fucking anything in a way that I like didn't even understand. Like, just like 2 quick stories. I remember once could you remember in high school is like a social war zone, like everybody's looking at you, and if they're not, you actually feel like everybody's, like, it's a normal teenage thing to think everybody's looking at you all the time. We're lining up for the cafeteria and she's like standing there talking too loudly and her like purse falls over and like 6,000 condoms in a chain, just like, I don't know why she had like this many condoms in her purse, and like everyone, like all the girls are just staring there looking. I mean, yeah, we know why. But it was just like, this is like 40 a day. Like, I don't know what, but anyway. So like all these girls are standing there looking at her and being like, she's a slut. Anyway, but I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm looking at her. I'm like, my heart's like pounding. Like I'm feeling so much shame. I also love it because like I don't care, but I'm just kind of like, Elisa, everyone's looking at you. There's condoms everywhere. And she was just like, oh, she like turned around and she like turned to them and was like, I fuck. And then put them back in her purse and left. Or another time, and then, okay, speaking of just letting the ball drop, because that was funny, but like there was one time where we were in the cafeteria and she's having her and some other girl started having a fight at like other tables, and they were like yelling something back and forth, and it got not like a whatever, they were just yelling insults back and forth, like a drag queen fight, not like a real fight. But and the girl stands up and is like, yeah, don't get your panties in a twist. And Elisa stands up and goes, yeah, well, I'm not wearing any, and sits back down, and like everyone just got quiet. It was like,
it's a great comeback.
Exes are the worst at ruining, or the best at ruining social situations.
Into the social space.
You wouldn't know anything about that.
I mean, I think there's stuff that's very attractive and appeling about social blind. So I do think we want to spend some time talking about that, but not until the end. But I do think, I think it's pretty funny. So
the most fuckable.
I do want to go back to like the not having the video. I want to know, is it because you're not registering any of this? Like why no video?
Okay.
We didn't even have video, Alexandra and I, on that podcast.
Oh
we
my
were, like,
God,
on
I know.
The phone. We couldn't even see each other, just to like reiterate.
Even though you're saying that right now.
The kind of things
a voice in the dark. Yeah.
the kind of things I was doing when there was no video while I was recording this podcast, like it did not need to. Alexander knows. Alexander knows what I'm talking about.
It's this thing about
right now.
Creepy, John.
The last few years, I just realized how uncomfortable I was with being perceived on camera and while talking. Yeah. And I didn't even realize that was a thing until of the few times that I had to do it. And I was like, I am really uncomfortable with, being seen. And I don't, there's something really inherently social blind about that, about being in the light that feels really uncomfortable. And maybe it's, you don't even think about the fact that because it's not like I don't want to be face to face with someone in person, because that's fine. But I think there's something inherently social about watching yourself and knowing that you're being perceived by other people, and you're not in the dark. That feels like inherently social.
We live off of these, and I'm not even a type that is particularly interested in communicating with people. But if I'm doing it, it's really important for me to control how I'm doing it and know that I'm doing it in the way that I want to. Whether that's creating a negative impression for people or a positive one, I might be deliberately trying to piss people off or whatever it is. But I can't do that without my arsenal of social cues and energy passing back and forth. Then I'm just in the dark and I can't control social, and it feels like quite literally like I'm blind, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I can't see. I don't know. Yeah,
I had some clients do reviews or testimonials or something recently for my website, and it made me think of, how did I get into coaching people? And so I looked back and I remembered that somebody just hit me up, and a couple people just hit me up, and it just happened organically. And I was like, the first couple clients I had, I don't know what they look like, because even though I was doing really intense coaching, it was all over the phone, and I don't know what got me doing video, but yeah, I don't know. It's a kind of a crazy thing now that talking about the effect of visuals, and I was just talking on the phone.
Yeah,
it feels like it's easier to talk.
It is. It's
harder. You don't know what to say. You don't know where the person is, what's going on, how they received what you just said.
I get a lot from people's voices, and the other thing is also when I'm on video, I start just looking at myself.
Well, all of us look at David. Yeah. Anyway,
I get distracted by my self-image. That's not.
No, but
really conducive.
There is something. Oh, go ahead.
Well, having not seeing anybody, you're just launching into the dark, and so there's a freedom in that. You know what I mean? You're just shooting arrows into the dark or something. It's just whatever. So there's a chaos, and there's it's we're I mean, some of those episodes we're just we're feeling around in the dark, and we're kind of touching each other in a party or something.
Yeah,
but there's a big difference.
Good stuff around when you're having really intense conversations, you're supposed to do it side by side.
Yeah.
And so, if you're having trying to talk to your kid about sex or whatever, you're supposed to do it in the car, because there is something, or take a walk. Yeah. There is something about language being really intense and then having gaze.
Yeah.
Also be it is too much and can be overwhelming. But I think what we're also sort of highlighting is there's an awareness of audience with social. And that's why I'm on camera, is I don't give a shit what I look like, but I need to see how you're responding to know if what I've said has landed.
And is having us on camera fucking up the social types from being able to let it rip?
No.
Okay. All right.
Well, that's the thing. It's just giving you context. If I want to let it rip, I know exactly how to do that if I can see you. It's just that thing that you just said, Courtney. It's that's also social awareness, knowing when not to stare at somebody and give them too much gaze. It'll be the social blind that'll talk about sex with their kid and look them right in the face or something, not thinking, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Right. I did notice that once we changed the video, the flow of the podcast improved dramatically, just because you could see that we could find each other easier. So I liked it.
I'm not letting it rip in terms of just roast us, because I feel like y'all have been really nice so far.
Maybe we're just not dicks.
Maybe they're just not social blind.
Or I think you guys are just hard to offend because I think we've been roasting the shit out of you. Actually,
I think it is. I think that is partially it. Like I think part of social is being aware of an interrelational kind of deal, and it's also being aware of like a social sort of like reputational image in certain ways. So like from the get-go, you guys have been excited to be roasted straight up because you have no concept of your like avatar that everybody's looking at. So who cares?
Exactly.
Well, no,
like
it's not that.
The interrelational part of that, it is that.
No. It's not that because I do respect the art of a roast, like a good pinpointed, honest but revealing insult is a thing of beauty. And so I would really, I mean, I think there's a lot of, I think we could roast ourselves pretty well, but I think there's a lot of material there to really pinpoint some hard hitting stuff that would be good roast. So
Creepster of the Enneagram does not. That doesn't. That's
Homewreckers.
Not,
I think that's a pretty good start. Creeps and Homewreckers.
Creep of the Enneagram just sounds interesting.
I don't know. I feel like you guys like both of those.
Yeah,
you call yourselves that. Means you like it. You're flattered by it.
Yeah, like I don't know.
I don't think I'm flattered by homewrecking.
I don't believe you.
I disagree.
Most homes should be wrecked. I mean, shouldn't they?
Okay.
Stealing people's wives.
Aren't most marriages terrible?
The thing is also, I think that we are roasting, but like we're giving social digs. Like these are digs. It's, you know what I mean? Like I don't know how.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like you guys, you want us to offend you. Like, what do you want us to say, that you're ugly? Like, I don't know what we're supposed to say.
That would be a good start. Yeah.
It's just having eyes.
Well, I think
here's another.
Go ahead. Kristen
on
has a list. I mean,
I do. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
I've got some.
I want to say this real quick because what I was curious about was like, okay, you're not going to get us with the social digs, but the things that social blinds care about, it's like finding where the bodies are buried for social blinds. It's not going to be like the stuff that would actually hurt my feelings or not hurt my feelings, but get at something I'm insecure about. Is not going to be from like how are people seeing me, or something about how people are seeing me that actually is my self-image is something, like, oh, you're not actually, this thing that you think you're doing is not actually landing. Like that's a little bit more of getting at what social blinds might be. Oh wow, I didn't, the hidden social that we're not really paying attention to.
Kristen, do you want to say something? I have another.
Yeah, you can go first.
You haven't talked yet. Go.
I know.
Yeah, go, Kristen.
I've got a list.
Go.
That's why I'm waiting.
She's waiting
do
for the
one, and then we'll go back to Courtney.
Yeah. Okay. Oh God, where do I start?
You've got a social blind roommate, right? So
I do.
Part
yeah.
of your context. Yeah.
That's part of my context, and also like I guess like I don't really know why I'm here, so that's one of the social blind roasts.
Oh, that's
like, how did I get here?
Because we wanted social types to roast us. That's why.
I know, but I think like there's a thing about like maybe too even the other the other podcasts and the other roasts, like why they might have hit so hard for people, and they like didn't really consider it as a roast is because like roasts do put things in a social context, so it's funny. And one of the things with social blinds is like if they don't have the person there in front of them, they have a very hard time humanizing that person. And so it sounds like with other roasts that you guys have done is like you're just kind of like talking about really specific people and think it's everyone. And think it's all of that type. Like, oh, it's all social sexuals who do this. And it's all self-resident. Right. So it's like, and I notice even like through like messaging, text messaging. Yeah. Like, it's like, if you're not in front of a social blind, like they will treat you like either a cardboard cutout or like you're a piece of shit and they hate you because they don't have you in front of, they don't have the impression of you when you're not in front of them. So I think that's why social blind roast can be like, is it a roast or are you just like complaining about people you used to know? Because it's like
it's like way too personal. That is the exactly. And you're like asking us for this, like this is part of the like social blind thing. You're like roast us, like stick your roasty dicks in our mouths, and it's just kind of like that's the thing that social blinds are doing, like stealing some kind of heat energy from you when you're like, okay, I'm gonna fucking roast you over that. Leave my dick alone or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like waiting for this like weird social blind, like, I don't know, like, you know what I mean, dildo to hit you or something.
Right.
And it's just like, we're doing the roast, guys. This is it.
Yeah. It's happening. We need to wake up to it.
I do think, though, that point, like, even as I was thinking about this podcast and how roasty I wanted to be, I was thinking about the three of you, but I also there's other human beings that are in your stack that are also listening to this podcast. Exactly. And I don't know who they are, but they are listening. And so that awareness of, I've never met this person before, and what am I going to say that actually it's not, I want to be funny, but I also want it to land and be useful to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's the best way? It's maybe not being mean. Being funny is helpful, but I mean, I was thinking about that as I got ready for this. And
well, I'll make this argument that, I mean, if you've ever watched a roast, a lot of it veers into like, it's not necessarily even true. Like, it's for comedic effect. Yeah. And so you're drawing cartoons, and I guess my point of view is that if, like with comedy, if it's funny doesn't even have to be useful. It has its own value. And so I think a lot of what's funny about roasting the Stackings, it's not about necessarily, I mean, there is some truth to some of it, but you're really going for the comedic effect. Like, you're really going for a roast. And so you can come up with some ridiculous insult that it has no bearing, very little essence of the person or the situation, but it's embellished because it's funny. So
but was it funny? Like, did people like it, or did they complain about it?
Well, I mean, I think it's funny. That's the important thing. I think it's funny.
Point that you guys thought it was funny because you were jerking off to each other, but there were people listening that were like, "This isn't me, and I don't like it."
I think what people don't understand is that this show is for us first and foremost. You guys are just along for the ride. And you're just like flies on a wall, watching us have fun with ourselves.
Okay. Watching us playing with ourselves.
Yeah. It's our context.
Which I guess is a self-roast right there.
Yeah.
Intellectually masturbating.
Kristen, what else you got on your list?
Oh my God. Okay, everyone just bombard me at once. Okay. Let me look.
Do you know why you're here yet, Kristen?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to vibe with what's going on right now.
Okay, this vibe.
I have ones for specifics because I've been following the track of the roasts of like, okay, sexual self-pres versus self-pres sexual. Mm-hmm. For sexual self-pres, one of the things I think that maybe bothers me the most, okay, two things. One is the like glorifying romantic relationships and then treating everyone else like cardboard cutouts. I think that's kind of annoying. It's like this like
that's a good one.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, this amazing experience has happened with me and my girlfriend or my ex-girlfriend, and everyone should live by it. Yeah, and like there's no, like, everyone listening that either doesn't have a partner or doesn't give a shit is like, I cannot relate to this like at all, and I don't care about your relationship, because they're like, oh, my relationship's the best thing ever kind of thing. Or even just like the way that they look, like the way they ornament themselves can be like almost to the extreme where it's like you can't even go to like the grocery store or drive a car without like looking like you just don't fit in with everything else going on.
So can I tell a story on the first one you made?
Yes,
because it's so I used to hang out with a lot of guys when I was in law school, and there was a lot of conversation about strip clubs. And I had some opinions about it that were like, I don't know, but I wanted to like check it out before I like came. I was like, I'm going to go to one before I say anything. So my experience of going to a strip club is a little bit like what it feels like with a social blind, where it's like,
yeah,
like they're having a lap dance next to you, and you're like, where do I put my eyes? Like, I can't.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
And it feels that way, or like when there's a hook and a like line on another person and you're nearby, it's like, what do I do?
Yeah. I've a quick anecdote too on that. I've never seen Emeka, you or Dave. We've only met once actually, but John, we've met twice, and in both contexts, you were with your partner at the time. And like when we were in New York last time, I was sitting there like having a conversation with Alexandra, and at all times your face was sideways, like kissing, like grabbing, touching. Like I couldn't have a conversation with Alexandra without like you like your
trying to bite me somehow.
Fully, I was like, just take out your dick and do it here. I'm tired of it. Enough.
Welcome to the John and Alexandra sex party. We'll be having sex on the table right there. We will be watching.
Like, forget it.
Jeez.
Yeah. But Alexandra, I mean, you were like, of course, like into it, but you were also like looking at me. It was just like,
because I'm like, because I have the awareness, so I'm just like, how do I square both of these at the same time? These are two very conflicting energies coming at me at the same time. How do I Bermuda my way into resolving both of these?
Boner on my leg, but also, work is good.
Yeah. Also, not to mention, that was my first time meeting you too, so I'm just like, hey.
So it's like, okay, whatever.
Too juicy.
And this is to your point, Emeka, like this is a real thing where if the person that you're interested in, unless they're also social blind, this is going to take away from your hook in a way that, like looking at social sexual, where there's a way that somehow they've got a line on someone, yet everyone else is in on the joke, or in like for someone who's got social in their stacking, that ability to do both at the same time is very, very attractive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be where I would sort of point to, like, this is one of like where it costs you.
How we could be more attractive.
Yeah, that's
a good way to frame it too. Is like if social, what are we doing? If sexual self-pres and self-pres sexual, like what is the, what is the aim of both of those stackings? What is the absence of social trying to do? It's trying to objectify themselves as objects and galvanize, the energy to lure them in as objects. And without the social element being able to like be fluid and like mediate is maybe too nine a word, but like sort of like manage the energies that are in the wider, just like in the wider field.
Yeah.
Then it does get like too specific, and it can be a miss.
And I think that's what then like fucks up a social situation, is that like social blinds are either like objectifying themselves and other people, and then when something like social happens, like some kind of drama, they get so pissed off, just like, how could this happen? And it's like, because you were looking at everyone like they were objects or like cardboard cutouts. Like all the social types knew this was going to happen. And yet, like, I think too, missing social, it's like social situations become like life or death. It almost feels like rejection-y a little bit. That it's like, it's either this is fun and there's electricity in the air and something's happening and there's something interesting, or it's absolute death and I hate it and it should die.
Yes.
And so when anything bad happens with social, a social blind's going to be like, it's their fault, everything sucks, I'm blaming this person and that and that, and like cutting everyone off, rather than like being able to see the whole picture, which is what social does, is like step back, look objectively, see the picture. Okay, this person was doing that, like assess the situation and know, okay, everyone's just doing their dynamics because they're people. Yeah. But if a social blind's not even recognizing the personhood, then they don't even recognize when they're even fucking something up.
Yeah.
That's actually an interesting pattern I think I see in the social blinds that I know, where they have this push and pull with getting hooked into like people and friendships where they're like all about somebody, didn't see them as a complete in person, didn't judge them properly, didn't do that social context, and then something will break and all of a sudden that person's complete and utter trash and they're cut off and they're done and they're like blindsided and I mean, okay, so I'm thinking too of my friend who's like a 3, so like maybe this is a little bit has like a 3 bent to it, but there's a bit of almost like self-judgment of like, if you have some self-awareness, like what was I doing? Like how did I not see that? Like realizing you missed all of that social context and that judgment. But there is that like, that like on switch versus off switch with social blind, because it's just sexual and self-pres like going in and out or something.
It feels like it's not that you're not seeing the person, you're just seeing like a very limited caricature of that person.
Right.
And you're seeing the person as much as it aids what you find you're hooked by or interested in. And I'm realizing that part of what's happening is that I'm resistant to seeing the person because it takes away from, it would diminish what I would find interesting about them. Because there's a good chance if I get to really see that full person, I'm going to be turned off by them. And so there's kind of an unconscious strategy of, if we're in the dark, shit is a lot more sexy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But it cuts both ways too. And I think we were talking about this after the zone, Emika, right? That there's aspects of your own personhood that in your objectification of yourself have also been cut off that actually would be channels or flavors of attraction that you could use.
Yeah.
But because there's sort of like, this is what there's a kind of a stagnation around, this is my flavor. And the layers that you could use, even that are authentic to who you are, actually don't get utilized.
Yeah. In my last relationship, I got to see myself in more of a social lens to realize that there are like some serious social judgments that I have or requirements that I have.
Oh yeah, man, I saw that about you so fast.
Very, very fucking serious, and it's like
when your social instinct is violated, I mean, it's like
you freak the fuck out.
There's a lot of energy behind it. Yeah, I mean,
And so just seeing that in myself and seeing like, why isn't this an upfront filter? Why is this something that becomes a filter after I've made the commitment to this person in a serious way? And so over the last zone, just made me realize like, I have these amazing connections and such a great experience that we had, but I've never had that same quality connection in the romantic context because I've upfront, I've never looked for quality connections that way. I've always objectified people or my romantic connections for what was hooking me, not like, are these people, if there was no sexual component, would I want to be around this person?
Well, and I think what you said is, I mean, there's a little bit of kind of heartbreak, and I don't trust that if I see all of you, and by definition, if you see all of me, that you're still going to be attracted to me and vice versa.
Yeah.
And I can picture how it's threatening, and there's sadness to that.
Yeah.
It'll come out to like on all of this and like to talk about that thing about having like being too attached to my special flavor. It'll be again, to put this into like more simple roast category, it'll just be like, when I don't think I've ever been attracted to a social blind because I'll just be like, oh, that person's attractive, but they split their tongue and they have an eyeball piercing. And that's their whole personality. Right. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Or they have like a snake tattooed on their dick or something. And you're just like, they would be hot, but they're so attached to doing this like weird thing. And it's just, it's like, what that does, I mean, the positive is that it'll work for somebody, and you'll know that they're hooked into that specific thing.
It narrows the field. Yeah.
It narrows the field, but it also is like really alienating. And I honestly just really think that sometimes it makes you less attractive. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think something that comes, and we didn't talk too much about like the effect of sexual blindness in the stackings. To me, that's just the water we all know. So it like almost doesn't deserve roasting because like it's a pre-roast. Or at least that's like the culture. Anyway, but one thing we went in with the self-pres blinds is how the self-pres blind spot actually kills the longevity of the stacking. And I know, the longevity of the connection. And that is something that is absolutely true in all three stackings. Like the lack of sexual, sure, you can like keep the car going, but you know, maybe you don't like it anymore. And so like the relationship's dead, even if it's like still moving. You know, and self-pres blind has like obvious implications to like literally not lasting very long. And so with the social blind stacking, it's just like to me it feels like fire and like the wood. So it's like a very smoldery kind of thing, but without exposure to air, without the curiosity that comes from exploring all of these angles. Eventually you run out of like the meat that you guys are so attached to, and then there's nothing else. Yeah, and it becomes a self-suffocating thing, and then it doesn't become regenerative. And this is something else I was thinking of while we were talking about like being on video for the calls. There's something, and of course I'm a social type, so that will contextualize like my take. But there's something to me about being on a call. I agree with you, David, that there is a kind of intimacy in not having like the visual distraction, and that's totally valid. But to me, sometimes it feels like I'm not totally with the person. At least that seems to be the thing that we're all getting from being on video together, is that it feels like we're more with each other. We can pick up on signals and, you know, have, you know, like even right now I'm seeing people nodding and kind of moving around, that kind of stuff. I think with the social blind stackings, it can feel like this person is over here and this person is over here, and sometimes they just knock into each other, but like the actual interrelatedness and like the mutual curiosity can sometimes be like, I think that's where Joseph is confused about like whether or not you guys liked him for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, it's stuff like that where there's like a communication, there's an open air there that like lets people know that we're all on the same page. And without that, it's just like, okay, we're just knocking into each other, but what's refueling it?
So I have two things to say about that. I mean, the first is I've been reading a lot of neuroscience and evolutionary biology stuff right now, and I'd love to talk to John about it at some point. But, you know, like when you look at highly social animals like an elephant or a horse, like, and to your point of exactly what you just said, it's not two molecules bumping into each other. There's an actual field that is created, like they're co-regulating one another. And if you step in the middle of it, like with a bunch of elephants around you, you can actually feel your nervous system drop to where they're all co-regulating. And that's the part that I think you're sort of talking about is missed. Like that we're part of a field, we're not just separate entities. And to Joseph's point, I don't know if you like me or not, it's the not participating in that part of what it means to be a human that is heartbreaking, but is also confusing. It's not acknowledging your own need for co-regulation.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, and it's not offering. It's also not offering the people that love you a chance to co-regulate you, a chance to like show you that they care. And you know, it's like it's a both of like you're depriving yourselves, but you're also depriving other people to give that to you, and then the other way around, like other people are being deprived, and you are depriving them for not being aware of that.
Yeah, I think because we started this pod in 2020. And that was, you know, the year that the world shut down. And I didn't realize, I mean, I have friends and sometimes feels like I take my friends for granted because it seems like I can always drop into social whenever I want while I sit in my cave for most of my life. And so when we did this pod together, it made that year one of the best years ever because for the first time I had like a scheduled time that I was, you know, hanging out with these guys and doing something that I loved, and we've just had multiple awakenings of how much we need other people, how much we need being around each other actually regulates us. And of course we did the zones, and that was a whole nother level of, oh wow, like we get together and there's like a vortex that opens up and amazing things happens and we can really connect deeply and all that stuff. So I mean, I think the last 5 years have been multiple sort of encounters with how important the social instinct is for us as social blinds.
John, were you going to say something about this? I know, like, you've had with Alexandra, that's been a big piece of your own. I don't want to speak for you, but a big piece of what you've learned and appreciated, in particular, about being in relationship with her.
Yeah, I got a little distracted because my sister's flight, she's like on her way, she's a 6, and her flight got canceled on the way, and so she's like freaking out. I'm like, Jana! So I'm gonna text her. So I think I got the gist of what you guys were talking about, but I was actually reflecting. Alexander and I were at the gym right before I got on the call, and I was sort of like, I still feel like these last couple years especially, I've been dealing with like a tidal wave of unacknowledged social stuff all hitting me and trying to integrate it and trying to reconcile things. And I was kind of like looking back, like how did I, like, was I as isolated as I, like, sometimes it doesn't make sense to me in a certain way, like, and then I like had some kind of just, I don't know, remembering of how isolated like I was, like even the way I like didn't engage social media in like a social way, like even when I had these sort of like windows into the larger world, I like didn't use them as windows. And so I don't know where I made this comparison, but it feels like I was making. It's like as if you've got like your brain, brain and clouds are kind of similar, right? Like in terms of just, I don't know, like they look similar to me. So like it's like you're using like two-thirds of your brain to make all kinds of decisions, and like there's lightning happening in all 3 sections of your brain, but you're only paying attention to the storm systems happening in 2/3, and then there's been stuff happening the whole time in the missing third, and you like turn the light on there or whatever, and it is like very overwhelming, and you're like, oh, did too much time pass for this, and like what happened here, like, there's just all this like grief and confusion and stuff like that. And so being with Alexandra, I don't know if I shared this recently in the pod or somewhere else, but we were like in the early parts of like figuring out if we were even going to be together, if this was like a real thing, or we were just like high on each other or what. And she said something like, I'm gonna really love you well, or something like that. And it was just like that, like turning on the light, but like as if like the turn on the light was like a spear, and it just like, and I was like bawling in the streets of Brooklyn or whatever, just like a huge bitch in front of everybody. And but it really like it's like turned on a thing that I don't know, some of the things that we've been speaking about, like the facial stuff or the feel or all this kind of stuff. It's like I knew other people had some tool they were using and relating to each other with that was like this awareness of something, and I would try to make it like funny for myself that I like been a part of that or something, or I didn't know what was going on, or I would just think, oh, it's probably stupid or superficial or something like that. But still, it was like this whole, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but to Emika's point about how good these last few years have been and stuff with the connection, it's been like, I mean, it's been really good and really painful at the same time, because there's a lot of dealing with like, you were mentioning being in a cave. Like I've been in a cave, even though I've like traveled around the world and stuff, I've been in a cave, and like I was like with people, but I was like actually by myself.
Yeah.
And a lot of the like people I was closest with, or at least spending the most time with prior to 2020, I like barely even speak to anymore, if I speak to them at all. Like there's like 3 people I'm thinking about that like just because there was like, it was nothing. It was like there was no substance. And so it's been, even to like today, I'm going through a thing where I'm like reconciling the lack of substance my life has had. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think at some point, I know these have been a series of roasts, but I do think there's a version of what's the flavor of heartbreak for each of these stackings,
sure,
as they wake up to what part of their humanity they've been missing. Because I think each has a different flavor, and I think also, what does it feel like in the body to come back to that part of yourself? I think that there's a different sensation to each of those blind spots being aroused. And I think that's really interesting.
Also, just like in a non-romantic context, there is like a play kind of energy. Like, I mean, the way that we all like just make fun of each other, you know, and just kind of like we'll make like little jokes about each other. Like the thing about when I learned David was Jewish, you know what I mean? Like that was like shocking. So funny. It was like, you know, it was so funny, and it was just like that was like I could just keep repeating that, and that itself was just the joke itself.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you know, or like I don't know. I mean, Emika's thing about like, oh, homewrecker, I don't like that term. You know, just be like, shut the fuck up.
Right.
You know, like those kind of personal things, like
right, yeah.
That's like I've jokes and stuff has always been an important thing for me and whatever, but like it kind of feels like I like in college I hung out with these guys that were like really funny and we'd all make jokes. They were two social types. And they like had like a strong bond, and they would sort of always loop me in, but it was like didn't feel like it was mutual, reciprocal. It always felt like I was like in my own little box, sort of like telling jokes from inside an R2D2 container. You know what I mean? Like launching one out of some silo somewhere. And it was like opening those doors has been like, oh, that's what that person was trying to do when they talked to me. Oh, that was what was going on. Oh, like that's how they felt. Oh, that's why they got their feelings hurt. Oh, like, you know, these same guys I mentioned, like when I moved out of Olympia, I guess I didn't give them enough goodbye or something because I cared about them, but I didn't feel like I was in their thing. And I guess like, especially one of them got their feelings, he got feelings really hurt. And I just like, didn't know, you know, and there's other people too that have like fallen away and have been like, oh, maybe that was happening, or you know, I just didn't read what was going on.
Yeah, it's like you guys have. I mean, I've been working with you guys for I don't know when we even started Enneagrammer.
2017.
2017, yeah. And you guys have changed a lot, like, and I mean, I think I have too. But that's a cool thing about the Enneagram is that like doors are, and it's and not just from me, but like from everybody. But like, if the three of us were like, okay, we like have to run a business. Like now, we're not just like talking on the phone. We have to do this. It's like we all had to like figure out, okay, what wisdom does that other person have that I actually don't have, and what wisdom do I have that they don't have that I can be like, okay, I need to assert this. But you guys have like learned a lot about. Yeah, like context and how to talk to people. I mean, you know, you're still you. Like when I was like, guys, we should have backdrops for DAA, and you fucking showed up with this shit.
Yeah.
You have some poltergeist-looking bullshit behind you. I don't know. I was thinking it would be some like nice color, just like something clean to make us look more professional. No, you
poltergeist.
What the? Do you have it? Like you can't see it on DAA, but it's like a face pushing through a cloth.
Oh yeah.
It's like a nightmare. I was like, that's what you know, and he didn't. But you were just like, yeah, I bought a couple things from Amazon, and then I saw it. I was like, this is what you bought. Anyway, but besides that, there's still, you know, like but then I also had to recognize too, where I'm like, okay, I have all this social stuff and this image stuff and this like 6 fix stuff and whatever and all this, and it's like, okay, there is like a wisdom in listening to them as well and being like, oh fuck it, do the fucking poltergeist.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, John, when we first got together, how do I say, John would just like get up and dance wherever in the line at a grocery store, in the middle of a bar, when there was, you know, bars can be kind of appropriate, but like not appropriate ones.
It's upsetting.
Yeah,
but I'm really good.
Took me a minute to get used to it. It took me a minute to be like, John, everyone's looking at you. But there is a kind of like, there's a benefit to that, you know, like I benefit a lot from that, of like remembering, oh, I can just like shut my social, I can go social blind myself and just not care, because like I'm not in a space where I'm trying to co-regulate with anybody right now. I'm not in a space where I'm trying to necessarily play. I'm just dancing.
So, Emika, I think you smile more.
Oh, big time.
That's so true.
You mean like now versus before?
Creamy 8.
Like I smile more now than
you
before?
Like show what you're feeling on your face.
Oh,
like
okay,
I'd make a joke and you'd be like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Just nothing. I'd be like, he hates me. I don't know.
Creamy 9s have nothing on Creamy 8 after a zone for when Emeka is like,
oh yeah.
I know. He's at full 2. 9 can't compete with 2.
That's cool. That I smile more. It means I'm happy.
8. Sunny 8.
David, you clear your throat more.
Yeah. I'm trying to get to the communication part. I'm still preparing.
Yeah, it's like you being like, oh, I have to speak. Let me get ready.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
He's making himself known.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think the videos were good because I didn't realize, like, usually when we do pods, like, I feel socially drained after, but I started to realize that seeing people's faces, that was actually giving me energy, and that I was starting to feel into that.
Gotcha.
Oh, wow. Like, it's not just enough to talk to people, but actually there's something going on when I see people's faces.
Like,
after several decades, we learned a thing.
These revelations that you guys have sometimes, like sometimes you guys will sit me down and be like, so like I just realized that like people like when we say something in the group, like people see it. And they're like taking it. I can't think of a good example, but like I'll just be like,
what was the social? What was the
parasocial?
Parasocial.
Oh yeah,
you were like, duh.
Oh my god, yeah.
I was like, have you ever watched TV, been outside, seen anything happen ever in the world?
Have you been under a rock? Yeah.
You like put it in this little 5-fix box. So you like had like a name for it. I was like,
Yeah, man, I remember that time too. Especially Emeka was like all just like inflamed about like, oh my god, do you guys know what parasocial is? Yeah, dude. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was a revelation.
Yeah.
There was even one day.
there is that added 5-fix thing where it's just like, this has been out in the field since the dawn of time, but 5-fix just learned it, and so it's just been invented.
Exactly.
Profound insight.
You're a philosopher.
There'd be like moments where I'd be like, oh wow, I hung out with OD the other day and I slept better. Like, what does that mean? Like, social makes me feel better? What?
Yeah, or like I think that like when I'm making friends with somebody, they should take an interest in me.
Yes.
You said that.
I did.
Like, what else would they be taking an interest in?
Is that a real quote?
Well, it was more specifically that I was talking about like there's the social backdrop or attachment, like stuff like that I don't feature about myself, like where I'm from and that.
Oh,
if someone
literally just you,
like the background
that
of
stuff
me
seems so boring.
It seems boring, but if somebody was really interested, they should actually care about like where I'm from and the fact that I'm not, that stuff.
It just seems like nothing.
Like it is okay. It is boring, but it's also like you can't remove it from who you are.
Yeah. Like David being Jewish,
right?
Yeah.
and it made me sad to realize like how many of so many people that I are romantic interests that didn't care about that stuff. I was like, wow, that's weird.
But that's kind of my point around like it's not just the roasting. Part of the reason it seems boring to you is because it's not like us social doms do it right.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, like we are talking about it in a flat way, in a superficial way where it's about categories as opposed to, oh, actually this is something that's different about you compared to most people I know. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
And so there's this assumption that it is flat and boring because of the way social doms are doing it. But actually, if it could be done the right way where it's super fucking interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
Something that could be kind of interesting to go into is like, or to maybe like just like reify as a concept or as a differentiation, is the actual differentiation between sexual and social, because they both have a sort of interplay with each other. But this is my bias. I would say one, and this is real bias that I already know John doesn't agree with, but I would say one is personal and one isn't.
I kind of agree with that. I mean, it's different dimensions of what personal is.
Yeah, it's a definition of personal, I guess. Yeah.
One is like personal about like, what is this?
David's Jewish.
Yeah, like
that's personal.
like you're moving. I don't know. The way things blend in your subjectivity versus like when you walk around with your hair big and poofy, and there's like a certain way you walk, and it's like
and like an affectedness.
Yeah, there's a way it affects me. That's like that's more sexual.
Yeah, like like a signature. It feels like what I can hyper focus on with somebody is like the sizzle of their existence. That's what sexual feels like. Yeah. And it does feel hyper personal in the sense that there's this very specific flavor here, but at the same time, it doesn't factor in the contextual framework.
It's unidimensional.
Yes, but it does feel like, when I think of every single one of my exes, it feels like each one represents some specific flavor or energetic signature that is very specific to them. And so in a sense, it's personal, but it's not, if that makes sense.
To me, it's like each person is potentially a specific drug that's interesting to me. And some people have less of that feeling about them. And so I'm not going to go out to them,
And so
the self-preservation too makes it territorial. Like, this is my thing. True. And that's why like sexual can look different when it doesn't have self-pres, because it's not the whole like, this is mine, this is my source, this is my resource, that kind of thing. It's everywhere.
I don't know anything about being territorial.
Right.
Help me.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask about what it feels like in the body to have a blind spot in each of these places, because from my perspective as a social, there's a lot that I'm reading in the field, and there's a distinctive vibe to the sexual. It feels really different, but it's still in the field. And then I have this like, do I go down that way? Do I open that door or not? And sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. But I'm sure there's a lot of times that I'm not picking it up, but it feels like because the antennae are out, I'm still sensing it. And I'm curious about, for social blinds, like what antenna, like, is the antenna like, this just feels boring, I register it, but it feels lame? Or, and also on self-pres, like if the antenna are not inward, self-pres blind, if the antenna are not inward at all, how do you register that it's missing?
I would say for me, one thing I was going to say earlier is that I'm starting to become more aware that I'm missing these cues. And so it seems like social, there's this field and there's all these subtle bids for connection that it feels like to me. And I'm always registering them after the moment has passed. And I'll recognize that, oh, they were trying to connect there and I missed that. And it never feels like I can register it in time to actually respond to it. So it's like I'm aware of some of these cues, but it's not happening in the moment fast enough that it feels like something I'm recalling and I have to remember, oh yeah, that. Whereas maybe before I wasn't even able to do that. Now I'm able to see, yeah, I missed that, or oh, that's a cue that I misread, or something like that.
That's kind of cool.
I'm probably missing a whole lot more, but it feels like I'm catching more of it now.
Joseph, do you want to speak to the self-pres blind like that? How do you register it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was thinking about it. It does register to me as lame and boring. It's okay. So as we're having these conversations, it's interesting because I guess, I'm the only one here that's self-pres blind, right? I don't always know almost what the difference is. This group is like being with you guys taught me what the difference between social and sexual is, because I can't always parse out. It just feels to me that like when people are around and it's hooking me in some way, I'm like head to toe just throwing myself into the fire, the air, whatever, letting it completely take me. And self-pres is the piece that starts to nag at you when you're like burning and you're like, I have to step out and I'm starting to get too hot. It's but I like don't want to leave because I don't. Do you know that? How do I like give like a stupid kind of metaphor here? If you go into like a hot tub or a sauna and you get in and you're like, oh fuck, this like it feels so good, and you're like, I'm overheating, but like I gotta stay in here because it feels good, but I'm like starting to burn, and then you get out and you're like, it's like cold and I'm out of this water. What the fuck am I doing out here? It's boring. You just like want to go back in, but your body is like damaged from like that's sort of what it feels like to me, and it feels like I have to do it, but it's such a buzzkill. It's like you're sobering up and you're sick, but you're like, I felt so good when I was drunk or high or whatever it is. And you're just like, but I have to sober up. I have to like drink water and eat soup or whatever. It's just this like nagging, boring. And what happens to me in a world full of self-pres is that people sober up way too early. It's like we barely even got to that drunk place. I'm ready to throw myself in here, and you're just kind of like, putting that like boring, and the metaphor I always use for self-pres blind is like I call social sexual. I mean, this is for maybe my stacking only, but I call them like teenagers because it's like, oh fuck, like mom is home, like the sleepover is like over, like we have to like pretend we're in bed, but like all this fun stuff happens at night. It's like, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna have sex? Are we gonna sneak alcohol? It's that like just high of like, can we throw ourselves into this social sexual engagement? But then there's that thing where you're like, I might actually be tired of this, and I don't like that my body is stopping me from doing this. Does that make sense? Yeah. Sorry, that was long.
No, it was
that was good. That was really illuminating. Yeah.
I do want to talk about what's great about being social blind just for a minute. I know we've touched on it a little bit, but
we have to.
I've made this joke from the beginning because going into thinking about how we were going to approach the social blind roast, there was already I already had the impression that this was going to be difficult to do because of reasons I've already illuminated. Like I was just like, they don't care about social enough to know why they should be offended by these things.
Yeah, y'all have just been flirting with us this whole time.
Making it go down easier for you.
Yeah. And I was like joking with John about it. I was like, I don't think this is going to work. I don't think you guys are like you're not going to register it because the social blindness, the social sphere is where you register it to begin with. And John made a joke back and he was like, yeah, I'm just going to think you want to fuck me. So we can talk about like what's great about social blind, but I don't think they need any help knowing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not going to...
least offensive because of all the socials.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah, sorry,
it's not even a roast.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say what's great, not for them, but for those of us who are sexual blind, or those of us who are social first. And what's hard about that, and all the fucking energy that gets spent monitoring.
True.
And you realize how you're exhausting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's super refreshing to see, actually, you don't have to, you're choosing to do this, actually.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to.
That's right.
And so that to me is like one of the things that's great about being around a social blind is reminding you of your own agency and how social you are choosing to let yourself be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, there is like an individualism that comes with social blind, regardless of how extroverted or how social, not in an instinctual sense, but like how like, social butterfly they are. There still is like I'm looking out for me first. that is a good reminder of like, oh yeah, I don't have to keep an antenna out on all of this stuff. They can fucking take care of themselves. I can just like dance in a bar and look like an idiot and have fun doing it because I'm not going to waste my energy thinking about that.
Yeah. It is I love social blinds. I actually do. I don't say I love anything often, but I do. It's not something that I look for, but I have so many social blinds in my life, and it is this, like what I was saying about, I brought those Elisa stories up earlier because it was like an early time in my life where I was like, this is exactly what I need in a friend. It was just like somebody, because I don't like larger, like I'm social sexual, but I'm like a withdrawn type, and I don't want to have lots of friends, but it's like, this is somebody who is actually just like literally sitting here and with me they don't have an ulterior motive. They're not talking shit behind my back. Like socials do that. You know what I mean? Because we're fake in our way. We have to be sometimes, but social blind's not really doing that. If they're with you, and I learned that when I was saying, joking, I don't know if they like me. I just learned really quickly that I was like, oh, like they wouldn't even be here. This wouldn't even be like this. The attention would not be But then I also learned that I'm like, when I'm not entertaining them, they also just don't pay attention to me. And I'm just like, had to be like, they just don't. Yeah. And that's fine too. Like, that's okay because it's like, I don't have to play this game
That's how you're a
right
drug
now.
for us.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, like I made a joke. They didn't like it. They didn't respond to it. Why should they? Why should we do the like that we all like socials will just do, you know what I mean? Or it's like this is exactly who they are. And you know, one more point just to say like what I like about social blinds is they're honestly like to me so entertaining for reasons that you're just
That's
like
true.
what the hell are you doing? Like are you serious with this shit? You're so embarrassed, but like I love that. I'm just like, ooh, like I'm embarrassed for you.
But we're not embarrassed.
No, yeah, that's totally true. Peak comedy watching social blinds.
Well, it almost like comes around and comes out the other side of social, right? Because so many socials are doing social bad that actually then when someone is so provocative because they just don't give a shit, it actually does sometimes do the social thing properly, even though that's not what they meant at all.
God, that's so true.
Yeah, that's
So
one
charming.
thing. That's one thing I've taken. There was a point where I was like, "Oh man, like, what a handicap!" And then I realized there is kind of an inverse thing that happens where if you kind of go all into your own perspective, that it's so singular and personal that there's a purity of it that can connect with people at large, and so that people can almost kind of connect to the individuality of, oh, that person's really just being them, and there's something more I don't want to say more human, but there is something human about that, of just unvarnished to you that people can connect with.
I mean,
it's
in
like
the
a social
animal
ideal. In a way.
I mean, in the animal world, what disrupts social hierarchy is sexual energy, right? Is the male that comes in and says, I'm not doing this anymore. And that's actually, there is a need for that in a social setting, that like where everything gets upset and reconfigured and new and fresh, that social blind can do really well, actually.
True.
So you saying that we saved the Enneagram?
No,
you guys aren't.
No,
You guys
it's
are not
not.
also starting. I don't think you're starting wars. Are you
Welcome
starting wars?
everybody listening. Yeah. Everybody, you know.
Big hormone Enneagram.
Yeah,
you're welcome.
Well,
I'm
I just
curious.
like just went right into that one, didn't I?
Yeah. But I don't want to give you any more compliments, but I don't think, I mean, it was something I had to learn too, where I had my own ideas and so did you guys. And it taught, but this is also, again, sort of my 6 fix versus your hex head fixes. But I was just like, oh, we could just really just do our own thing. Like we don't have to worry at all about the context of the Enneagram Institute or the stupid
teachers,
like whatever the teachers where it was like, it's not that I wanted to be a part of it, but I was just like, oh, you're really just like taking scissors and snipping that right
Our
off
own world,
and creating your own world. But you know, and then of course I think maybe I brought some context into it. It's like, okay, if you're really in your own world, then you're not going to have any audience in your world. Like you need to, so it's but it was freeing for me to realize that, where I was like, I really should just do my own thing.
Yeah. And just to be free we can be as weird as we are, and, you know, look at what the group has become, and that our audience is more of a reflection of us. Like we got kicked out from all these groups because, you know, we're too weird or provocative or whatever else. But now, we piss people off, but look at the group now. It took maybe like 3 or 4 years, but people who are similar and don't find us deplorable are here.
It's because you guys have grown in your social. That
is true too.
That's true.
Yeah. It's like it's like getting something from both, because honestly, like our group's amazing, like the Discord's amazing. Like I flip through comments sometimes and it's like small, but I'm just like, hey, these people are really smart and they have amazing things to add and they're like learning, and it is that sense of like we're really doing the exact thing that we want to do, but with some social context, so that we can bring people in and they can find us, you know, locate us. Yeah.
So I have a question for the social blinds, actually.
All right.
I want to know what you guys don't like about social blinds. Because I know you have stuff.
Oh yeah. I've never dated a self-pres sexual, but I have dated a sexual self-pres. And it was, I think it was shortly after I met John. and I made up my mind that I wanted to. He was the first sexual self-pres that I'd met, and I was like, oh, that's what that energy is. And so I was attracted to the idea, and shortly after that happened, and it sort of like got me to see myself in a new way. And what ended up happening that I didn't like, I mean, first of all, it was intoxicating because it becomes this self-contained thing that feeds on itself. But it eventually felt like there wasn't enough air to breathe, and it felt like if this didn't go right or perfect, it would just burn out, which is exactly what happened. And it felt like it's a sensation. All the stackings feel like sensations to me, and in a weird way, sexual self-pres felt intoxicating, but also there's no way this is gonna last. That's what it felt like. Sexual self-pres on sexual self-pred. It just felt like, man, I see what's intoxicating about this, but this has there's no context to give this relationship a foundation to grow. It made me realize that there's no way that I can, it's probably extremely unlikely that I would be in a relationship with the social blind, because I desperately need to be with someone who is doing this thing that I'm not doing. We can't just ride on sexual heat. That's not what a relationship is long term.
Yeah, I'd say that with social blinds, I have the feeling of it. You never really know where you're at with them. And so you'll kind of like you might you can throw something out, like a comment or something like that, and they might respond, and then it's like flat and reptilian again. So
yeah,
they might laugh, they might whatever react, they might push something forward, but you're never like, are we connected? Is this like just like fun we're having, or are we connected?
Yeah.
And so then and then you see them after a time or something, and it's a little bit like
yeah.
Was this ever like a thing for you? It kind of was a thing for me, but maybe it wasn't, and that's like so, it's
like a perpetual hookup. It feels like every single time you kind of have to see right. Do we actually have a bond? We like hooking up with each other, but do you like me?
And I mean, even like, is this actually mean? Is this actually bad? I can't even tell that, so I can tell there's sometimes like an energy moves, and that energy movement can seem like something's happening, but I can't tell if it's even good, bad, lasting, real, fake, whatever.
Well, let's see. Where do I begin? I've dated several women that are my stacking, and
oh God,
yeah, it's it turns into just very cave dweller, stagnant. Eventually, it starts with sexually being exciting and all of that stuff, but then it turns into sort of a routine of just like food and sex and hermitizing and sort of forgetting about the wide open world and all the possibilities of other things we could be doing. And so it kind of ends up shutting down, and we end up, grumbling at each other and fighting, and then sometimes that's feeding the sexual thing again, and so then you go back into that, but it's like you're not really tending to the relationship. And some of them don't know anything about me, for example, that I dated for a couple of years.
Wow.
It's a dark picture you're painting here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that comes up around that, for whatever reason, you said wide open world. I feel like a lot of it's not just, okay, let's see. there is the wide open world, as in like leave the house and like go and explore things and do stuff. But there is also the wide open world that is the other person.
Right.
Yeah.
That is not just like how you can knock up against each other. It's like, what else is there to explore about this other person, especially because they're constantly thinking new things, feeling new things, developing, It's a constant exploration. And I think social has a natural understanding of that, where I think social blind can kind of be kind of not be aware of that.
It's again
sometimes.
the dropping the ball thing, right? There could be so much interaction that could be happening here. Yeah, and it's just the ball just keeps dropping. You kind of don't know how to keep it going.
Speaking of dropping the ball, I want to pop the one that's happening right now because it's like 10 here. Are we done? Or
Yeah, we're pretty much wrapping up.
I think
another
we're
40
pretty
minutes
much
of audio adjustments.
we're done.
I think yeah, we've had like an hour and a half, so that's probably enough for an episode. Unless you guys have any more roasts.
I scheduled this for 3 hours, so
hoping that they would have plenty of.
Yeah, we want to end this, but David wants to keep going.
yeah. I don't want to go back into the cave or anything. I want to keep the ball up in the
I
air.
think the best example is always just going to be, guys, go watch The Idol, watch The Weeknd be just the cringiest self-prosexual.
Yeah.
I guess one final self roast is just being such horrible judges of people.
Yeah.
And how many times
It's
one of the most upsetting things about being social blind. Like the last zone before this one.
It's an impediment.
Yeah, I was really upset about that. And I've done a lot of I've done a lot of soul searching on like what is the root of this. And I think for me it just comes down to you can't see any aspect of somebody that you haven't seen in yourself. And so I'm not going to be able to be like it's an element of I'm objectifying myself, and so I'm just objectifying people, and I'm not really getting to see these people for who they are fully. And it's not like I can't. It's like if I actually take the time, it's not hard, but I'm just, painting by broad strokes and like, oh, this person would be cool for this. And so it's a conscious thing that I have to do, but it just made me realize, man, how much this has cost me. How many horrible relationships, how many horrible experiences, how much disrespect, and how many like deplorable people that I've allowed myself to have access to our
They're
group.
all listening.
Yeah. Don't care that we're offended.
If you're wondering if it's you.
I've gotten better. I'm just realizing how much this has cost me, and that's the biggest thing that I hate about being social blind is like, holy shit, what a horrible judge of humans I am.
And
when Sammy listens to this, she'll know.
Oh my God.
Toxic Sammy.
About her.
Yeah, it's partially I don't want to extend this because I'm over it, but on your point, just to say, it's one thing that I noticed with social blinds, and it's pointing to what you're saying, is that you don't know that there are different layers and types of social connections and friendships.
Right.
So you just give all of the stuff to whoever. Like you'll be like, oh, this thing happened at the zone. I'm like, oh, you just like invited everybody, and you gave them all the same. Like
right.
you have,
Right.
and it's cool because it's like, oh, social blind puts you on level playing field, but I'm like, you are not on level playing field. There is a hierarchy, and there are like hierarchies of closeness, hierarchies of power, and that's what trips social blinds up the most. I think that's like a real impediment where you're just like, this is like, it's cool sometimes you're like, oh, they didn't care about that person in power.
Hierarchy is
like,
also of like self-awareness, like judging where people are at. Yeah,
exactly. So you're just like, you're that personal thing, you shouldn't have shared that with this person, and it's just like, why? It's like, it should be clear to you who gets that part of you. Yeah. And that's what you develop, those social connections, and they deepen, and then you can share all of that stuff with
more
that
access,
those special people. Yeah, right. Access.
Yeah, it's realizing that I have there's this, huge handicap with being able to do this in real time. So I actually have to force myself to put attention towards somebody and go through, what about this? What about this? And something like the zone, planning for the zone, is when you get an opportunity to do that. But in my, regular everyday life, this is not happening in real time. And so it's like, oh, this is how much weight I have to carry to make this thing happen. That's really important.
Yeah, for me, there's something about missing love. I mean, love is the social domain, when caring for a person and affection and all. And so I don't know how to roast that. But
to self roast.
Yeah.
That's a good place to end. You guys are loveless. Anyway.
Give it to the social 4. He'll shoot.
I like this. This is good. It's like a nice somber, like minor chord to end this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And on a bad note. That's good. That's the great
ending.
All right. That was a good roast. I appreciate that. You guys came through.
Thank you, guests.
Yeah.
Dear guests.
Yeah,
that was good. I feel
what's all the social filigree I need to say right now.
I feel adequately roasted. I feel
yeah. Now you have to tell us you love us all.
Oh man. See,
you can do it.
We might have done that, but now when you said it, it's like, oh man, that framing really does not.
Yeah, we're not going to do that.
Aesthetically, that framing just did not work with my whole deal.
All right, we'll work on that.
Okay, guys, I'm exhausted.
Right,
I'm going to go. Alexandra, you're good for tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, I will see you then. Thanks, guys.
All right, y'all.
Okay,
nice to meet
y'all.
you, the two of you that I just met right now.
Me too.
All right. Bye.
All right, night, y'all.
Bye, guys.
Bye.